have a very special story to share with you. This is actually one of my favorite books, um, one of my favorite children's books. It's called The Fantastic Flying Books of Mr. Morris Lessmore. And this is by William Joyce. So William Joyce wrote Rise of the Guardians, if you know the movie, and Meet the Robinsons, and he's the creator of Roly Poly Oly. And this particular book, if you go on YouTube and search for the movie, it won an Academy Award a few years ago. It's about a 13-minute long video, and it's really cool. So hopefully you enjoy the story. Morris Lessmore loved words. He loved stories. He loved books. His life was a book of his own writing, one orderly page after another. He would open it every morning and write of his joys and sorrows, of all that he knew and everything that he hoped for. But every story has its upsets. One day the sky darkened and the winds blew and blew, until everything Morris knew was scattered, even the words of his book. He didn't know what to do or which way to go, so he began to wander and wander. He's just walking around. Everything's black and white, too. And then a happy bit of happenstance came his way. Rather than looking down as had become his habit, Morris Lessmore looked up. Drifting through the sky above him, Morris saw a lovely lady. She was being pulled along by a festive squadron of flying books. Well, Morris wondered if his book could fly, but it couldn't. It would only fall to the ground with a depressing thud. The flying lady knew Morris simply needed a good story, so she sent him her favorite. The book was an amiable fellow, and he urged Morris to follow him. You can see it's Humpty Dumpty. The book led him to an extraordinary building where many books apparently nested. Like a bird. Morris slowly walked inside and discovered the most mysterious and inviting room he had ever seen. It was filled with the fluttering of countless pages, and Morris could hear the faint chatter of 1,000 different stories, as if each book was whispering an invitation to adventure. Now, what is that place? Our very favorite special place, the library. I miss the library. I miss all of you guys too. And then his new friend flew up to him and landed on his arm. It held itself open as if hoping to be read. The room rustled to life, and so Morris's life among the books began. Morris tried to keep the books in some sort of order, but they always mixed themselves up. The tragedies needed cheering up and would visit with the comedies. The encyclopedias, weary of facts, would relax with the comic books and fictions. All in all, it was an agreeable jumble. Morris found great satisfaction in caring for the books, gently fixing those with fragile bindings, and unfolding the dog-eared pages of others. And dog-eared means when somebody folds a page over. Poor book, it needed bookmarks. Sometimes Morris would become lost in the book and scarcely emerge for days. That's what happens when I find a good chapter book. I just want to keep reading and reading. Look at that. Morris liked to share the books with others. Sometimes it was a favorite that everyone loved, and other times he found a lonely little volume whose tale was seldom told. Everyone's story matters, said Morris, and all the books agreed. And if you can see, people are black and white, and when you hand them just the right book, they turn into color. At night, after all the stories that needed telling had been told, and everyone had settled down to their proper places on the shelves, the great big dictionary would get in the last word. Zzz. And it was then that Morris Lessmore would once again write in his own book. He wrote of his joys and sorrows, of all that he knew and everything that he hoped for. The days passed, and so did the months. You can see he's having a picnic there with the books. And then years and years. And Morris Lessmore became stooped and crinkly, but the books never changed. Their story stayed the same, and now his old friends took care of him the way he once cared for them, and they read themselves to him each night. That's so nice. And then one day he filled the last page in his book. He looked up and said with a bittersweet sigh, "I guess it's time for me to move on." The books were sorry, but they understood. Morris put on his hat and took his cane, and as he went to the door, he turned and smiled and waved goodbye. "I'll carry you on here," he said, and he pointed to his heart. The books waved their pages, and Morris Lessmore flew away. And as he flew, he changed back to the way he'd been that long ago day when they first met. The books were quiet for a while, and then they noticed that Morris Lessmore had left something behind. "It's his book," said his closest friend. And inside was Morris's story, all of his joys and sorrows, all that he knew and everything he hoped for. And then the books heard a small, expectant sound, and there in the doorway was a little girl. She looked around with wonder, and then something fantastic happened. Morris Lessmore's book flew up to her and opened its pages. The girl began to read, and so our story ends as it began, with the opening of a book. So now she's going to be caretaker of the library. And that is the end of the story. So I hope you liked it. And I like the idea of writing in a journal. You know, you can have a sketchbook or a notebook and write about things that happen to you, especially during this time. I think that would be a nice thing to do so you can look back at it someday. I miss all of you very, very much, and I hope you're doing well.